celebration of Shabwa paves the way to liberate new areas and the entire Yemen. Houthi militia escalation undermines hopes of Yemenis for peace in the new year. UN recent report reveals Iran's involvement in smuggling arms to Houthis. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Shaza Abdelbey. The Giants Brigades announced the liberation of the entire Shabwa governorate from the terrorist Houthi militia. In a statement, the Giants Brigades announced the end of the third phase of Operation the South Cyclone by liberating Ain district after 10 days of operations. The announcement noted that all the districts of Shabwa governorate were completely liberated. Earlier, the Giant forces announced that they were able to hold tens of Houthi rebels as prisoners after fighting in Ain Bayhan. Military sources said Giant air defense shot down 2 Houthi drones deployed west of Shabwa. The Houthi militia took out its militants from checkpoints in Taz. Sources confirmed that the Houthis took out their members and sent them to fight on the fronts in Shabwa and Ma'rib to compensate for its losses. According to sources, the Houthi militia is actively gathering fighters, including children. Despite the ongoing Houthi militia offensive on Ma'rib, the rebels are losing in different fronts in the city. They have been shocked by the military tactics and flexibility of the Giants Brigades, which caused total collapse among the rebel militia. This report has more details.
Shabwa, Ma'rib and Al-Bayda, the hopeful triangle of victory for the Yemeni legitimacy over the Houthi rebels who took the capital Sana'a back in 2014. The 3 neighboring governorates are a strategic key for in advance for the government forces, backed by the Giant Brigades and the popular resistance. The Giant Brigades are driving their way in Shabwa successfully through penetrating Usaylan, Bayhan and Al-Ain, which constitute a main artery for Houthi supplies further north in Ma'rib. The Giant forces are very close to declaring their victory in Shabwa by a full liberation. Hence, some pressure will amount on the Houthi rebels both in Ma'rib and Al-Bayda. Liberating Shabwa will secure a back support in face of rebels' persistent efforts to penetrate Ma'rib from the south. In addition, liberation of Shabwa will push the Houthi rebels back in Al-Bayda. It will also cut their support lines back in the Arabian Sea, where they assume to receive smuggled arms. Then, Giant Brigades may have a full field control in the south of Yemen and will come together with the joint forces there in the western coast. This cohesion between the Giant forces, the joint forces and the government forces will circle the Houthi rebels both in the eastern and southern fronts of Yemen and will push their way to capital Sana'a, driving the rebels further north. The operation in Shabwa coincided with extensive airstrikes carried out by the coalition to pave the way for the advancing forces. Heavy losses in lives and equipment have been inflicted on the rebels, whose dead bodies are scattered in the battlefields.
The coalition announced it carried out 11 operations against the Houthi militia in Ma'rib and 38 operations in Shabwa during the past 24 hours. The statement indicated that Ma'rib operations resulted in the destruction of 7 military vehicles and the elimination of more than 50 Houthi terrorists. According to the statement, operations in Shabwa resulted in the destruction of 29 military vehicles for the Houthi militia and the killing of 220 terrorist elements. The recent spike of violence in Yemen has killed the hopes of Yemenis for a better chance for peace as this year begins. This report has more details.
The 7-year war in Yemen has not subsided, and it appears to be escalating further in 2022. Houthi rebels are to blame for failing all peace initiatives presented since the beginning of the year. The aerial bombing is not the sole escalation. Ground fighting has been deadly over the first week of January in Ma'rib, with 200 fighters killed from both sides in 24 hours, medical and military sources said on January 4th. Early this week, massive ground forces moved from Yemen's Shabwa, advancing towards the districts of Usaylan and Bayhan. The troops also intend to push neighboring districts in war-ravaged Ma'rib province. In a recent interview with Sky News Arabia, Yemen's prime minister said there is political support for these military movements, and we will see extraordinary developments in the coming days. The present scenario points to the two sides' dependence on the battlefields, and a viable political settlement is still unlikely. When the Houthi militia started fighting the Yemeni government, they used to have fewer weapons than now. Now they have missiles and drones. Therefore, a rapid military solution is not feasible, and the political dialogue has made no headway over the last 7 years. So, as the war prolongs, the humanitarian crisis will worsen nationwide. On December 28, the UN envoy to Yemen, Hans Grunberg, said the scale of the latest escalations is among the worst we have seen in Yemen for years, and the threat to civilian lives is increasing. The UN envoy admitted that 2021 ended on a tragic note for Yemenis as poverty, hunger, and severe restrictions on the freedom of movement affected millions of people. In the end, tragedy described by the UN envoy does not seem to vanish this year.
Miyun Human Rights Organization warned that the areas of Usaylan and Bayhan in Shabwa are belted with mines in the populated areas. The organization added that these mines are posing a danger to civilians, noting that a number of civilians were killed and injured because of these mines. Miyun called upon the Houthi rebels to hand over the maps of mines, warning citizens from early return to their homes in these areas. Masan Project for Demining said it removed more than 2,400 mines during the first week of January. It noted that the total mines removed since the start amounts to more than 300,000 mines and unexploded devices that were planted randomly by the Houthi militia in different parts of Yemen. A report by international experts revealed that nearly 2,000 Yemeni children were killed in 17 months while participating with the terrorist Houthi militia on the battle fronts. The annual report of the Security Council's panel of experts said 1,406 children died on the battlefields in 2020. It added that 502 children were killed and also died in the battlefields between January and May 2021. The report indicated that the ages of these children ranged between 10 and 17 years. Media sources in the UN Security Council said an Emirati protest letter was received against the Houthis' hijacking of the Rawabi ship in Hodeidah last week. The Emirati message made it clear that the Houthi group had carried out a piracy operation in the international waters, stressing that such acts of piracy are incompatible with the international law. The Emirati message to the members of the Security Council confirmed that the Houthis continued to illegally detain the ship and its crew of sailors. Iran's support to the Houthi militia has become known with the confession of Iranian officials themselves. Every time and then we come across a report or a study that confirms it. In the same context, a recent UN report found that thousands of weapons recently seized in the Arabian Sea came from a single port in Iran. This report has more details.
The United Nations found evidence that thousands of weapons recently seized in the Arabian Sea likely came from a single port in Iran, which shows Tehran exporting arms to Yemen and elsewhere, the Wall Street Journal reported Saturday. Yemen has been racked by civil war since 2014. The United Nations imposed an arms embargo on Houthis in 2015. The United States and Saudi Arabia, which led the military coalition back in the Yemeni government, have long accused Iran of supplying the Houthis with weapons, a charge Tehran denies. Citing a confidential report by a United Nations Security Council panel of experts on Yemen, the Wall Street Journal wrote that sea and land transport were used to smuggle weapons made in Russia, China, and Iran into Yemen. The arms included rocket launchers, machine guns, and sniper rifles, which had been seized by the US Navy in recent months. Boats used to transport the weapons had left from the southeastern Iranian port of Shask. The Saudi-led military coalition on Saturday accused Houthi rebels again and their Iranian backers of using two Red Sea ports for military purposes. The Houthis captured the Rawab ship on Monday of the key rebel-held Red Sea port of Hodeidah, alleging it contained military material. The ship is being detained in the Houthi-held port of Salif, north of Hodeidah, both of which are crucial entry points for aid supplies. On Tuesday, the coalition said Yemen's rebel-held ports would be considered legitimate military targets unless the vessel was freed. Recent months, fighting in Yemen has seen coalition forces carry out airstrikes on Houthi militia targets in the capital Sana'a. Riyadh has said its 2015 intervention in Yemen was aimed at restoring the legitimate government and preventing an Iranian proxy from taking power on its doorstep. The United Nations estimates that Yemen war will have directly or indirectly killing more than 370,000 people by the end of the year. More than 80% of the population of around 30 million require humanitarian assistance.
Coming next. As the battle with Houthis is cultural in essence, a youth initiative was started in Hodeidah to erase Houthi sectarian slogans.
اضطرينا ان احنا نغادر من ذي وزحنا.
الله يستنقذكم يا محويتني الله يستنقذ.
Welcome back. A youth initiative was started in Hais to fight and erase Houthi sectarian slogans which filled the buildings and walls of the streets during Houthi control. Such efforts are giant and noble as the Houthi war against Yemenis is ideological and culture in essence. Therefore, fighting it should be also with counter-ideology that promotes peace and moderation. This report has more details.
A community campaign launched by the youth of Hais district in Hodeidah aimed at obliterating the slogans of the Houthi militia in the streets and alleys of isolated and newly liberated villages, which are sectarian slogans that seek to erode the national identity and spread hatred and violence among Yemenis.
Today, a community youth initiative from the people of Hais gathered on the liberated areas to erase the false slogans that were written on the walls by Houthi militia, who are supported by Iran. We are here today with the youth and the elders to support this initiative to erase all slogans that were written due to misleading mental awareness by Houthi militia, trying to obliterate the national identity of Yemen and destroy its culture. We are here to support the country and its people in their expressive national orientations.
Houthi slogans, considered by observers to be a false culture, were introduced by the Iranian-backed militia to Yemen to serve Tehran's agenda. The Houthis wrote them on the walls of homes, mosques, as well as educational schools. Young people and parents obliterated them and replaced them with patriotic phrases instead of slogans that are foreign to our society and carry a false thought.
Today, we are going to erase all these slogans that are on the walls of schools and homes in villages and liberated areas in Hais. And as you can see in front of you, it's nothing but fake words, written by the falsehood of this militia that destroy the country and its people, and left nothing to us but destruction and explosive devices, harming civilians and leaving them to suffer. Our children come here to their school to learn. This is an educational place. They shouldn't be seeing this.
The initiative and the societal campaign, which included on its first day the northern villages, is an ongoing campaign aimed at obliterating all Houthi slogans of falsehood and deception from all villages and liberated areas in Hodeidah.
The Yemeni Committee for Human Rights Investigation said 2,842 incidents concerning violations of human rights have been investigated during the past year. The committee added that 2021 has seen a big rise in violations against human rights in Yemen as a result of the escalating military operations in the country. The sewage flooded in Mansoura district Aden and filled the streets. This can damage the hygiene of the environment and people as well, especially in winter. This report has more details.
The flow of life doesn't stop in the ancient Kabuta neighborhood in Mansoura district in Aden, but some of the neighborhood streets are no longer just roads for pedestrians to cross, but also a path for overflowing sewage and stagnant torrents, an environmental and health disaster that threatens the lives of residents and harms their interests and their ability to move from one place to another.
The sewer spews here, which is coming from Mansoura and Qahira. The problem is that it causes diseases and destroys the streets.
This problem reveals a significant deficit in the sewage system in Aden, where sewage flow rates more than double the carrying capacity of Kabuta's treatment basins, which are designed to hold about 20,000 cubic meters of sewage.
This is because of the population density. The basins can no longer tolerate this increase. The disaster causes a lot of diseases, which can be transmitted by mosquitoes. A lot of streets are destroyed, including a mini street like this one.
The environmental catastrophe of untreated wastewater extends to the marine environment, where about 15,000 cubic meters of untreated water flows daily into the sea, while neglecting the maintenance of basins, the accumulation of sediment inside them, and the narrowness of sewage transport pipelines contributed to its leakage into residential areas and main streets.
These basins are neglected since 2015, the beginning of the war. Although manager Mohammed Mahmoud addressed the issue to concerned authorities for draining and repairing the basins, which have been worn out since 2015.
The causes of sewage overflow in this neighborhood in Aden are well known and clearly visible. It is difficult to predict the ability of the local authorities to confront this problem and find radical solutions to it. But life also will not stop here, even if it's mixed with wastewater.
Prices of oil have seen a rise in the Houthi-controlled areas in the western coast of Yemen. Local sources said the Houthi rebels are driving a slow crisis in oil products in order to raise their prices in the black market. The sources outlined that the rebels are managing those black markets through their leaders and are selling oil products in high prices. The National Committee Against Coronavirus recorded 11 new cases of the pandemic. Committee officials said that there were no deaths and 1 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 10,108, including 1,987 deaths and 7,044 cases of recovery. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. Liberation of Shabwa paves the way to liberate new areas and the entire Yemen. Houthi militia escalation undermines hopes of Yemenis for peace in the new year. UN recent report reveals Iran's involvement in smuggling arms to Houthis. This is the end of the news. For more, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Yemen Today English. Thank you for watching.